I will deal with you, old man. You are too old. Die and rest. I will make life miserable for you. You cannot prevent me from enjoying my youthfulness, you wizard, Obinna said, gallivanting around the small old sitting room. Old Grandpa Joe just clocked 80. Weak and unable to perform his regular activities, his children had decided to get him a house help. By recommendations, Obinna was brought to take care of Grandpa Joe. That sunny afternoon, Eze, Grandpa's first son, had sat Obinna down to brief him on what he would be doing for Grandpa. You would wash, cook, make sure the house is clean, and most importantly, make sure Grandpa takes his medications. He handed him Grandpa Joe's medications and explained to him on the doses to administer to Grandpa Joe. Obinna nodded in affirmation and took the medicine to the bedroom. Mr. Eze left and the war began. Obinna wasn't the so-called calm boy they had imagined. He had a grudge in his heart. Where is that stupid old man? Grandpa was in his bed resting that afternoon as Obinna stomped in. Oh, you are resting. Ha ha ha. Will you get up from that bed now before I sound you a dirty slap? With sleepy eyes, Grandpa Joe raised his head up, all to see that it was Obinna, the new house help. Grandpa Joe was still struggling to sit up when Obinna rushed him and pushed him out of the bed. It was like a nightmare. Grandpa Joe hit his butt on the floor and managed to stand back. He wanted to caution Obinna immediately, but he received a backhand slap instead. Now, move to the bedroom. When you are done, let me know so that we can cook. Grandpa Joe was dumbfounded. He still couldn't recollect what was happening. The slap alone made him rush into the bedroom, limping in pain. 5 minutes into Grandpa Joe's beating, Obinna began banging at his door. Will you be fast? Do you want to sleep there? Grandpa Joe rushed up. Obinna showed him way to the kitchen. He made Grandpa Joe do all the poundings with abusive words coming out of his mouth. Old fool! You cannot do anything. You brought me here to turn me to a rag, but over my dead body will that happen? After cooking, he gave Grandpa a little portion, one that can't even curtail a child. That evening, Grandpa settled back in his bed, reaching out for his phone to call his son. As if Obinna had read his mind, he stomped open the door and sharply collected the phone from Grandpa Joe's shaking hands. No phone for you ever in this house. If your son calls, I will get you the phone later. Grandpa Joe cried bitterly. He's now living like a prisoner in his own house. Early the next morning, Grandpa, who is used to waking up at 9 a.m., had a loud bang on his door. This is barely 6 a.m., Grandpa said, looking at his wristwatch. Obinna had a spare key. He quickly unlocked the door and pounced on Grandpa Joe. Will you get the broom now and sweep the whole house before I count up to 10, you lazy old man? Grandpa Joe swept the whole house under Obinna's supervision and shoutings. By the time he finished, he was so weak and tired. He collapsed to the bed, weeping bitterly. That morning, Obinna gave Grandpa Joe 2 slices of bread and watery tea as breakfast. Grandpa had no option. Obinna had taken charge over everything. Grandpa grew lean and felt sick. No proper medications were administered to him. Days turned to weeks, and weeks turned to months. Instead of things to get better, Obinna kept showcasing his wickedness using diverse strategies. Grandpa Joe had a torch which he used at night when there is power failure, but Obinna had picked up the torch and personalized it. From today onwards, I will utilize this torch and it is now mine. That night, everywhere was dark and Grandpa Joe wanted to ease himself in the toilet. Unfortunately for him, he slipped and fell, hitting his head on the door frame. He never knew there was a spill of water on the floor. Obinna heard a loud scream from Grandpa Joe's room after the fall, but he never cared reaching out to know what was the cause. Grandpa Joe sustained head cut from the fall. He had managed it using methylated spirit and GV. It was painful, but he had nothing else to do. He also took some paracetamol to manage the pain. It didn't just end there. Obinna was indeed a weapon fashioned against Grandpa Joe in that house. Grandpa Joe does all the washing. What do you think you are doing? Obinna's thunderous voice came from the kitchen. Grandpa Joe had wanted to do the washing with the washing machine. Will you go get the big bucket from the bedroom? The big soap and the detergents are there in the bedroom waiting for you too. Lazy ass man, he shouted the more. Obinna only goes to the market to get foodstuffs, but every other house chores were done by Grandpa under thunderous shouts. Eze, Grandpa's first son, had placed a call multiple times, but before the calls, Obinna had warned Grandpa Joe never to spill anything, else he would go hungry for days. Obinna finishes the whole foods in the house. By weekends, he would go clubbing with his friends, leaving Grandpa Joe all alone. That fateful Saturday, Obinna had gone clubbing as usual. Eze never mentioned to him that he would be visiting. Eze alighted from his car and found the whole building calm and without noise. He quickly rushed inside. He couldn't believe what his eyes saw. Men doesn't cry, but Eze cried that day. Grandpa Joe was near death, lean and sick, shivering on the bed. God, what happened? Why didn't Obinna ever mention that Grandpa Joe is sick? He called out to Obinna, but had no answer. God, please help me. Help my father. He prayed, touching his forehead to feel his temperature. Eze reached out to Grandpa Joe's medications, but became shocked the more. Not even one had been taken out. God, what's happening? Eze cried, confused. He quickly carried weak Grandpa Joe, tears rushing down his cheeks. Grandpa Joe couldn't talk. Anytime Obinna goes out for clubbing, Grandpa Joe stays hungry till he returns. Eze rushed Grandpa Joe to the nearby family hospital that morning. There, Grandpa Joe was admitted and administered treatment. Eze stayed beside Grandpa Joe, praying fervently that he recovers. It took Grandpa Joe 2 complete days to finally gather strength. Still lean and pale, but was able to talk. Grandpa Joe reached out for Eze's hand, holding him tightly. He narrated to him all he had been passing through from the very first day. Grandpa Joe could have been a dead person by now, if not that Eze came in impromptu. God, Eze cried out. I thought Obinna was a good boy. I thought he would take care of you just the way he promised. How could he be this cruel and wicked? Eze cried out the more. He quickly took permission from the doctor. Doctor, please, I will be right back. Grandpa Joe, I will be back, okay? Let me get 1 or 2 from the house. He went back home only to see Obinna packing his belongings, and hurriedly wanted to run away. "Hey, you bloody fool! Stop there!" Eze shouted. Obinna froze, his bags at his left and right hands. He had packed the whole house properties to flee. What a life! Eze rushed him and knocked him down, tying his hands and legs. "How could you have been this heartless? Why not plainly tell me that you can't do this rather than suffering my father? You will pay for this," Eze shouted the more to Obinna. Obinna started crying, pleading for forgiveness, but it was already late. Eze called the police department and Obinna was arrested and jailed for 10 years with hard labor. This is a true life story. Please, grandparents, make sure you have cameras installed in your house anytime you are getting a new house help. Please subscribe, like, and share. Don't forget to comment down where you are viewing from. Thank you.